You do realize that it's a year later and traffic is flowing again. Hello, my friends and neighbors, and thank you so much for your prayers and your support. It has been a year later, and thank God traffic is flowing again. This is my take, so don't hate. Okay? Thank you. Do you remember the silence in the streets? It's been a year now since we were told that we were deeply engaged in a worldwide pandemic and realized the danger that we were in by the COVID-19 virus. And without getting into any of the political nonsense surrounding the pandemic, I want to say how grateful I am that the Lord has kept us and allowed us to survive to tell the story. Of course, there were casualties, and our hearts ache for them, and we are consumed with grief. But there's still much to thank God for. And in spite of it all, He's still worthy of all our praise. We were all faced with making difficult decisions from then up to now. And I trust every decision was made, and every decision that will be made only after carefully listening to and considering what we're being told by those who are qualified to advise us on such matters. And I hope that we won't make any decision until we've labored in consultation with the Lord through prayer. Have you ever been caught in that sensitive place where you didn't know whether to laugh or to cry, whether to celebrate or complain? There's a place out there where regardless of which you chose to do or which you choose to do, you would be justified. In other words, if I chose to cry, I would be justified. If I chose to laugh and rejoice, I would be justified. But I think we're more comfortable with it being one way or the other, not that mix in between. I think we would feel better if it was more definitive, that we would know that this is the time to laugh and this is the time to celebrate. Or on the other hand, this is the time to mourn and this is the time to cry. But when you're torn between the two and have good reasons for both, what do? To say that it's a bag of mixed emotions could be the understatement of the year. Have you walked outside lately? Have you peeked out the window lately? It's a year later and traffic is flowing again. Perhaps those days of silence in the streets are over. As the traffic picks up, it's an indication that life is coming back. It's evidence of a shift in the chaos of this past year. It means that people are returning to work, children are returning to school, and hopefully everybody is returning to church. It seems that we are turning the corner on the COVID-19 pandemic and all the devastation that's left in its wake over the past year. There are at least 3 vaccines on the market, and more people are being vaccinated. The numbers are finally going in the opposite direction. And it's seemingly we're doing good work. And it seems that whatever we're doing is working. And I pray to God that it is. I don't talk a lot about going back to normal. You hear a lot of people say getting back to normal. My mind is focused on moving forward. My mind is focused on moving forward to normal. You could call it a new normal. Amen. My mind is focused on establishing normal. The truth is, I'm not trying to go back to anything. I believe we are moving above and beyond our past. But then there are still those lingering questions of now what, or how to, or when do we? We're in a very complex and complicated place in world history, but even more so, we're challenged with our personal history. There's so much ahead of us, so much potential, so many possibilities, and yet we have left so much behind. So again, do we celebrate or do we cry? Well, I say both. I say give them both their proper airtime, proper space. Give both adequate attention while keeping each in its proper perspective. For me, and I know for a lot of you, for many of you, it's not easy. A lot of good things are happening. Things are looking up. Traffic is flowing again. But listen, at the same time, we've hardly had time to mourn our dead or give them a decent burial. We've hardly had time to really grieve. With so many casualties left on the battlefield, it's hard to celebrate. But celebrate we must. It's hard to shout about how we made it over when so many didn't make it. It's a struggle to rejoice, but rejoice we must. If we are to get ahead, we must move ahead. There's no other way. This is a very important moment in our history, and how we handle survival is critical in our survival. You need me to say that again? I'll try. How we handle survival is critical in our survival. As God gives us one day at a time, it is critical in how we handle that day, because that will, in many ways, determine whether we see another day or what kind of day we will see. Amen? How we handle this moment of survival is no small task. The world awaits our decisions and our actions. You know, God is using you and God is using me to play a key role in the future of our world and in our families and in all that falls between the two. You and I didn't just survive. We survived with a purpose and with a mission to make this world a better place for all people. You didn't survive because you were lucky. You didn't even survive because you are blessed. You and I survived because God has a plan and a purpose for us. It's a year later. Traffic is flowing again. May not be flowing fast, but at least it's moving. And you and I will determine if it moves in the right direction or how quickly. You know, let's not try to speed it up, though. We have to take it easy. We have to take it slow. And we must be very deliberate and very decisive in our actions. As things apparently take a turn for the better, care must be taken that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. Care must be taken that we don't jeopardize our future. Care must be taken that we don't mismanage our opportunities. So let me give you a few thoughts to consider to that end. Amen. Amen. First of all, whatever turn that is made, we talked about this pandemic taking a turn, things taking a turn. Whatever turn that is made must be a substantial turn. Say that with me. Substantial. Yeah, that's it. Substantial. It's got to be a substantial turn. And what I mean by that is it has to be a meaningful turn. Not just a little glitter of a turn. It has to be something substantial there. It can't be that we simply had some sign of movement. The move has to be substantial. We can't act on isolated incidents, and we can't move based on what is an exception rather than the rule. We got to have a substantial turn. The evidence and the numbers must favor the overwhelming majority of the people before it becomes the law of the land. Before we can say we're out of the woods. And before we begin to let our guard down, there has to be a substantial turn. Before we can claim it's over, there has to be a substantial turn of events. And this requires, my friend, patience. You know, we've had many enemies in this fight against the virus. And I believe one of our more deadly enemies has been and remains impatience. Our inability and our unwillingness to wait and be patient, to give things time to work and to be effective. You know what has happened? Our impatience has caused us to become patients. You know it's the truth. Our impatience has caused us and will cause us to become patients. Amen. Secondly, whatever turn that is to be made, whatever turn that is made, not only has to be a substantial turn, but it also has to be a sustained turn. Say it with me, sustain. Yep, that's it. You got it. Amen. It has to be a sustained turn. I mean, it can't be something that only works for a week or two. It has to work for generations and generations to come. If we're heading in the right direction, we must continue to head in the right direction and not try something today only to abandon it tomorrow. And that's our problem. We don't want to wait it out. We don't want to see it through. We are so impatient. We're not giving things time to come together and things time to work. If we're doing what works, we must continue doing what is working. And we must be able to show a sustained trend of effectiveness and success. We need to have a track record before we declare it's over. Amen. Thirdly and finally, whatever turn that is to be made, not only has to be a substantial turn, and it has to be a sustained turn, but it has to be a secure turn. Amen. We can't have something that saves 2 people and kills 2,000. It has to be safe. We can't save your side of town at the expense of the other side of town. We can't save our people while causing harm or negligence to your people. It has to be secure. Whatever's working has to work safely, and it has to work for everybody. Amen. Yeah, I mean, I recognize the risk that, the risk has to be taken. Risks have to be taken. I understand that, and I don't mind taking risks. Many of us, we've been taking risks. Now, we have to try things before we know whether or not it will work. And that's why, even though we have to take baby steps, we still got to take steps. We got to keep this thing moving. We can't just crawl under the bed and call it a day. But nor can we move too fast. Amen. We must proceed with an abundance of caution as courageous people place themselves in harm's way at risk for the sake of the whole. For example, if we were in a situation where we needed to cross a frozen lake and there was some question about whether or not the ice would be able to hold us up, somebody's going to have to go out there and try it. Somebody's going to have to walk out there understanding that there's the risk of, once they get out in the middle, that middle is too far to go on and too far to come back. When they get out there in the middle, what happens if ice breaks? But someone's got to do it. And nobody wants to be the first one to go out there and try the ice. Oh, not me. We don't know whether that lake is frozen. We don't know whether it would allow us to cross to get to the other side or not. We don't know whether the ice will hold up and allow us to cross safely. But someone will have to attempt the crossing to prove or disprove the integrity of the ice. I know that nobody wants to be the first. Nobody wants to be the first one to go out there and test it. But we all know that someone has to do it. Someone has to risk it all and walk on out there. Amen. And thank God. Thank God there have been so many people who are willing to take that risk. Do you know what? We're able to cross and get as far as we have gotten because some people stepped out on the frozen ice, risking their lives. Some have even fallen through. Some are no longer with us because they stepped out there, risked their lives as we tried to figure out what will work and what doesn't work. There's an old familiar song that says, we've come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord. And I'm cautiously optimistic about our future, but I have no doubts about God. Our God is able. And over the past year, we have swam the length of the ocean. Let us not drown now that we're 2 feet from the shore. We've come a long ways. Don't give up now. Don't quit now. Don't become irresponsible now. Don't become reckless now. We've come this far by the grace of God and by the vigilance and the steadfastness of the people. We're almost there. I know you're chomping at the bits to get out there and get at it, but be patient. We've got to, listen, we got to be careful. We got to take it slow. Don't drown now. It's a year later, and traffic is finally flowing again. Aren't you glad about it? I am. Now, that's my take. What do you have to say? Sound off. God bless you, my friend. If I don't see you on Sunday, I hope I do. But if I don't see you on Sunday, I look forward to seeing you next Thursday. May God continue to bless you, and may he keep you is my prayer. Amen.